Hi, I'm Teresa Chang.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann McCara.
Hi, I'm Kim Johnson with Moms Navigating Autism.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann. Welcome to Moms Navigating Autism.
Hi, I'm Teresa Chang.
Hi, I'm Kim Johnson.
Early intervention is a key part of your child's treatment. Once you notice that your child is perhaps not making developmental milestones, that's the time to perhaps seek out early intervention. From ages 0 through 3, you can get a whole host of services for your child: physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, ABA, and all of these can help your child to progress so that, perhaps they can, do the best that they can.
Oh, absolutely. You should definitely get early intervention services. And one of the best ways to find out is to call your school district if you're not calling the right place, because I think in our state it's 2.5. Once they're 2.5, it automatically transfers over to the school district.
Preschool. Mm-hmm.
Right.
CPSC.
Right, CPSC. So you really need to get on that, because as soon as you suspect something, your child's not talking, he's aloof, my child was setting things up in a row with I gave him little people, and he loved those, but he would set them all up in a row, and that was different. So you call the school district. What I did was I called the school district, and
there's also a number with the state that you can call, and there's also a number with Westchester County that we could provide on the website that you can call also on the website.
Right. But in any state, you should call and find out. And if you're not sure, call the school district. They will tell you where you need to go. They're too young for them, and they'll direct you to the right place.
They usually give you a list of service providers, and then from there you do an evaluation, and dependent on the evaluation for the child, that's when they determine whether the child's eligible for services through the school district
or through the
CPSC,
county,
yes.
Right, or through the county or wherever. But it's key to start as early as possible.
Our son was evaluated at the Westchester Institute for Human Development at age 2 years, 2 months. And after that, he went into early intervention, and we had a host of people visit our home. We all sat around. Our son was observed, and it was determined that he would receive speech therapy and ABA and occupational therapy. And these therapists would come to our house, and that lasted until he went off to a half-day program at Fred S. Keller.
My son was born with a medical condition when he was first born. He was born with an imperforated anus, which means he had no opening. So he had to go to Westchester Medical Center for surgeries when he was first born. So he was in NICU to start at Westchester Medical Center. So when he turned 8 months old, I received a call from, I believe it was St. Agnes at the time in White Plains, to come in for an evaluation because he was a NICU baby. We just want to check where he is on his milestones. So I brought him in for an evaluation there, and they were telling me things like he's not crossing the block midline, hand to hand. And back then I was younger and I didn't know what that meant. What does that mean? What's going to happen? I had a lot of questions. I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. So they mentioned early intervention and getting services for him. And I remember calling my mother and telling her, this is what they said. And she just said, get the services that they offer. If he doesn't need them, it's not going to hurt him. He'll just be ready when it's time to go to school and, meet those milestones that will help him out. So I took the advice. So our first therapist that came to the home when he was 8 months old was a PT therapist. Then we got OT, and then we got speech, and then we had ABA. We belonged to a Mommy and Me program that had children with special needs integrated into a regular mommy and me, and it was ran by the people at the children's school. So they said, you know what, he's 2.5, he should come to preschool here. So that, again, that's when you go to the school district, you have your CPSE meeting, and my son got services then and went to school there for 2 years for preschool. And, you know, he was still getting services at home as well, and getting services in school, some of them, his PT, OT, and speech. But again, it's something I'm glad I did. I listened and said, oh, you know, don't worry about it, just do it. Because my son definitely is still getting it at 21. He's still getting all these services because he's nonverbal. He still needs PT, OT, and all those therapies. So it was good that I did it.
Well, we noticed that our son was not speaking, and that was a clear red flag to us. We were very concerned about the fact that he did not have any words. He was also lining up cars and engaging in behaviors of that nature. And I had brought him to a local preschool to see if there might be a place for him there. And the director said to me, you should have him evaluated. I mean, he was my first child, so I didn't quite know what to expect. Was what I was seeing normal? Was he just a late talker? But I'm glad I had him evaluated and got him the services that he needed.
Let me just say, I had my son evaluated at Westcott because he was socially not blending in. Prior to that, I had gotten him speech therapy at the age of 2. I had him evaluated for speech because that was my pediatrician told me I should have him evaluated for speech. So I went down to Mercy College and they evaluated. So my son wasn't exactly diagnosed with autism, and think until he was closer to 9. While most of these places came in through the school district, they evaluated. What they said was he needed speech, he needed OT, he needed PT, but they did not diagnose. It wasn't until he was closer to 9 that we took him down and had him evaluated at Columbia Psychiatric, and they said he had autism.
They don't usually diagnose till at least the age of 3, at least back then.
That is true.
That's what they say.
Right.
So, and at that time, it was a diagnosis of pervasive developmental delay, PDD, and OS at the time, because they weren't sure and they didn't know.
Right.
And when you're told of the possible delay or anything, you want to run to the internet and you want to look up everything and say, this is what he's doing, this is what he doesn't have, this is what he does. And the doctors always told me, don't do that, you're going to drive yourself crazy, because if you're looking and say, oh, he has this one, oh, he has symptoms of that, oh, it might be this, it might be Fragile X, it might be that, is it autism? And a lot of these disorders and things all look the same. They have some of the same similar behavior patterns, some of them. So I could have said he had this, and this, and this, and what is it? So again, the whole thing of early intervention, and if we didn't go to St. Agnes, I didn't know anything about early intervention. I didn't know this was something that they could do. I didn't know where to go for services, and some people don't know that. So it's good to, share that information and let people know about early intervention.
That is correct. That is correct. So even if you go to the school district to get your child evaluated, you'll be evaluated for services, and based on the scales that they have, if your child qualifies for speech, PT, OT, they will give him the services, but they can't diagnose. So if you want a diagnosis, you should really go to a doctor, a neurologist, psychiatrist to evaluate them. They can evaluate them and give you the exact diagnosis.
I think that's where our diagnosis, it might have been the neurologist when we finally had that done, with the MRI and stuff. I think is when the final diagnosis finally came. So
Right.
My son doesn't allow doctors to touch him, so you can't even get blood out of him. You can't do X-rays. You can't do MRIs. All these things were challenging when even when he was small, and now he's huge. But these things are very challenging because he won't let anybody touch him, look at him, test him, or anything. So we just go at his rate and his pace and follow his lead and what we do. So
Now, moms, dads, you know if something is different. You know if something is not quite the way it was when you were growing up, if you have other children, the way it was when they were growing up. Call your doctor and talk to them. They would know too, because you bring your kids in when they have a cold. You bring your kids in annually. Discuss it with them, and they could also tell you where to go for early intervention services. But it's really key to get started on services as early as possible.
It's also advantageous to have services provided in the home, I found, because then there was that one-on-one interaction. And when your child goes off to school, instead of having one-on-one speech therapy, your child might be placed in a group for
Some of
speech
it,
therapy.
some of it's group pushing.
Some of it's group. I mean, there
good
was
to learn to communicate with other people.
one year when we really pressed, he's in a speech group, but we think perhaps he would benefit from one-on-one speech therapy. So we had to, fight for that.
My son, in the early beginning, his speech therapist actually was where we took him to someone. So it wasn't actually in the house. But my son, a lot of times, it's so different therapy when he's at school, opposed to if he's here and he can hear one of us in the background or know we're there. He tends to do a little bit more if it's in the school environment. He's so different in the school environment than the home environment. So they could push him a little bit harder and make him do things that we can't hear sometimes. So sometimes it's better when mom's not. Feed off of mom, save me.
Right.
So.
I've noticed too that there's a higher degree of compliance, especially with the ABA. I mean, I would try to go do these drills with my son, and he would not take me seriously at all.
Yeah.
But if he's, sitting with a professional who is very no nonsense and takes him through the steps and has the reinforcements, he was a lot more compliant and probably got a lot more good out of it since a professional was doing it.
My son's home ABA up until now. He still had home ABA. She's firm. She's a tough cookie, but he, sometimes he needs that, because if you don't push him, like you say, he's gonna be like, don't want to do it, push it away. No, I don't want to. She got him to do a lot of things. She pushed him. He's capable of it. He has a lot inside of there. So, it's important, to have that with somebody, that relationship with somebody where they're going to push you. Yeah, I'm tough, but I'm not going to get away with it. And it definitely has helped him. So he understands the commands and what's asked of him.
Right. I mean, I can remember feeling frustrated when the therapist would ask me, do you have a better reinforcer? And I'd be like, well, I don't know.
That's what works here.
For a long while they did edibles, or then they might do a desired activity like blowing bubbles.
Or a favorite toy.
Or a favorite toy. Yeah. But
yeah, that's I think a common one they ask. Well, what can we use as the reinforcer? Do you think he likes something else? Is there some other kind of cookie, or does he like music? Or my son likes Bear in the Big Blue House. That's what he likes. That's what he watches, and that's like key reinforcer is a video player. As long as he has that, it blocks out sound, and he's good to go. He's happy. It's not like food or toys, candy, or anything. Bear in the Big Blue House. That's his big number one. And they're like, is there any other, when you watch any other movies? Not really. Maybe some Elmo, but not a bear.
For us, it is the Wiggles.
Oh yeah. He still likes it. Yeah. I don't know. It's something with the cartoon, or there's like real characters in that. I think my son likes more of the puppet, not a cartoon, or I get him to watch the Minions a little bit.
He likes the music. Part of it?
And he gets stuck on certain parts. Like he'll rewind. It's funny. He knows the buttons on a DVD player. He can work it backwards, forwards, rewind the same part over again. We'll hear the same part over and over and over, and then he'll move on to something else on the movie. But he likes certain parts better, like certain sounds or music.
Yeah.
He keeps going back to that. He's fixated on that. But he could work that thing like nobody's business.
Yeah. Now, we described how CPSC is in the testing and going to the different testing and people coming to your houses and stuff. One thing we do want to
Sorry.
mention,
I was like, I feel it.
regardless of whether your child is 2 years old when he enters, every year you will be tested annually at the end of the school year. Your child will get these tests again, and whatever services he's receiving, OT, PT, speech, ABA, they will write a report. And parents, you should get a copy of that report before you go in to your annual CSE. And it really should not be handed to you the day of the meeting. You should really be getting them prior to the meeting, at least 2 to 3 days, because you have to be able to read those tests, and you have to be able to know what you're going to go in and either fight for, or if you don't want certain services, tell them you don't want the services. But you really should be able to read those tests prior to the meeting, not the day of the meeting or at the meeting. So contact whoever is running the test, whether it's the school, the county, and tell them that you'd like those tests before that. And then the other thing I want to point out is if your child is 4 going on 5, ending pre-K and going into kindergarten, there will be also a full range of tests done prior to entering kindergarten. So once again, the therapist will be coming to your house, or you'll take your child to a place, and this is all before entering kindergarten, because it's like your child going from one school to a different school. The new school will want tests run on your child, and the tests will be run again. And once again, you should be receiving those reports prior to the annual meeting, or prior to the meeting, which will indicate your child is going to be attending kindergarten or whatever that school is. But
they also do those tests to have the proper placement when you turn
Right.
from CPSE to CSE,
Right.
which is preschool going to school age. Then they find a placement for you, so you have the opportunity to go look at different schools, and it depends on what your child's needs are.
Right.
Whether they could be in a regular school, if they need to go to a special program. This is when you have the opportunity to look at the schools, see where they're going to be placed. So, and
Right.
again, it's dependent on the child's needs.
yeah, that's right.
Now, what happens when you think that perhaps the evaluation that's been done is not thorough, or it wasn't done by someone who was competent to do that evaluation? I mean, I remember one case where we had a speech evaluation that was done by a teacher of the speech and hearing handicapped. And I really felt that the evaluation should have been done by an SLP.
You can ask the school to do an outside evaluation with an SLP, and they will run it.
Right. And will the school be responsible for the cost of
Yes,
that evaluation?
the school. Well, in this state,
In this state.
state, they will run another evaluation if you ask for an outside evaluation. If you don't agree with it and you want an outside evaluation, you can ask. From the time I entered my child into the school district, I knew that I wanted outside evaluations. For the most part, in my school district, most of the tests are being run by the school. Well, not prior to kindergarten. Prior to kindergarten, you pick an agency, and then that agency will run it, because it's still being run under CPSC. But once you enter CSC, which is from kindergarten and up, then it's being run by the school's speech therapist, the school OT. But from the time my son entered, I said, I want outside evaluators, and they honored that and went with an outside. You do have the right to say that.
Right.
So
I think my son's program did his evaluations from the point that he went into kindergarten age on. The evaluations are all done by his school program that he goes to. They've always done the evaluations.
right.
And it's not the school, my son's not within school district, so it's outside school district anyway. It wasn't
Right. It was
the
it's
people
done by
from
the
his school
outside placement. Yeah.
where he goes.
Right. Yeah. No, I've heard that too. A lot of the outside placements will do that, because some of the outside placements, like BOCES, for instance,
That's where he goes.
they have an array of different therapists from outside. Although I did pick one time BOCES to run one of my son's evaluations, and they didn't have a speech. Was it a speech therapist? I think it was a speech therapist. At the time to be able to evaluate him, so they brought in somebody from New York City to come up to do it.
I always thought my son's teachers that he had, his therapists, they all did his evaluations or gave reports on it when there was
Right.
annuals or
Right.
triannual, whatever they
Right.
were. He
Right.
hasn't had one probably in a long time.
Which is
but-
the other thing. I know we're going ahead of ourselves right now, but once you enter the school, every 3 years your son will be evaluated. It's called a triennial, and your child will be evaluated once again to figure out whether the placement he's in is correct, whether the diagnosis is still correct, and if it's not, if they think it's not, they'll tell you that you need to have them reevaluated by your doctor.
And also the purpose of that is like if they're out of district, the
If they're
the
out of
goal
district,
is always to bring them back to district. That's always the
Exactly.
goal, is to get them in a
Exactly.
place where they can come back
The
to
least
district.
restrictive environment. Yes. And that's it's always about bringing them back to the least restrictive environment, bringing them back to the school district. But yeah, that's
Yeah, and that's fine if the least restrictive environment works for your
right.
child.
Exactly.
And in our case, it would not have worked at all.
Right. They couldn't handle
They
it.
couldn't
Right.
handle him. He really needed, eyes on him all the time.
Ours is 811 with a
Mhm.
1-to-1 aid for my
Mhm.
son. So, and most of the kids in his class, of the class of 8, do have a 1-to-1 aid. So,
Right.
Our son has never had a one-to-one aid, but he's always been in a classroom where there's a very high staff-to-student ratio.
they do have, yeah.
My son has had one-to-one aids, and they do a lot of redirecting, refocusing. I mean, I have had some good ones, and I have had some really bad ones. But parents, you have to keep talking to your children and listen to what they say, because your children will tell you, whether they're left alone, and if the school's complaining that there's a lot of meltdowns, you have to kind of wonder where the one-to-one aid was.
Our sons
like I
don't
said,
talk, so for
No,
us it's
so for
hard
us
for that.
it's
We have to
right.
depend on the staff and the teachers to write us our notes back and forth, let us know everything that's
Right.
going on.
I remember when our son was very young, when he first went off to a half-day program, he was about 3. And there would be a notebook that would go back and forth in his book bag, and I would write a note, and then the teacher would write a note, and then we would write notes back and forth throughout the entire year. And she would tell me how he was during the day. And I would say how he was the previous night, and whether he had had sleep disturbances, and whether or not he had eaten in the morning, and what his mood was like in general.
Yeah, that's
He was always fine getting on the bus. He was always great getting on the bus. He was not phased at all. I was worried about that. I was worried that he'd be clingy and anxious and
I
not want to
cried.
get on. But he went right on the bus, not a problem.
Once the testing gets done, like I said, you do need the evaluations to be sent to you prior to the meeting. But then the discussion becomes whether your child should enter a regular education school, or as Marianne said, an out-of-district placement, and Kimbo said an out-of-district placement. Sometimes it's going to be a fight with the district, and sometimes it's not. Some districts will actually say, I'm sorry, we don't have a program, we need to find an out-of-district placement. And if that's the case, then you will be going to visit some out-of-district schools. And the way that works is they will send out packets to schools that they feel fit. But parents, if you know of programs in, like, say, another school district, because a lot of school districts will have programs also, and you would like a packet sent to there, you can request that those packets be sent to that school district. I know I've done that several times, and the school district will send out packets to those schools and packets to the schools that they seem to feel fit. You do have to visit. What then happens is the school districts will receive the packets, and then they'll see if they have a placement for your child, or if your child seems on paper to be a good fit for your school, for their school. And if they seem to make a good fit, then they will call you to set up an appointment for you to come and tour the school so that they can interview your child. So you will have to bring your child to that school.
An intake, I guess.
It's
right.
it's an intake, correct. And then after that, you leave, and they will send the school district a letter stating your child, you know, they have a placement for your child or they don't have a placement. You should visit, I'm going to stress this, you should visit the schools that they said for you to go to, they suggested you go visit, and then go visit the ones that, you know, if they call you. And now, I know some school districts will say they sent it, but the school districts never got them. So you do have the right to call those schools and say, hi, I'm so-and-so's mom. Did you receive a package for my child? And they will tell you either yes or no. And if they did not, then you should call your school district and say, there must be some mistake. They haven't received the packet. Can you please send it? It is a give and take. It really is. It's a give and take. And for the most part, the bottom line is money. It's the budget.
I remember when I started researching after we got our son's diagnosis, just how much some of these special schools cost. I called the McCartan School in Manhattan.
Oh,
And they told me $60,000 a year, and my heart sank. We can't afford that. But then I started reading more, and I came across the phrase free and appropriate public education.
Correct.
That every child by law is entitled to a free and appropriate public education. And my son never ended up attending McCartan, although I've heard that it's a very good school. And we have been very happy with the schools he's gone to. But when I read that phrase, free and appropriate public education, that was such a relief to me. To know that my son could get what he needed through our existing public school system.
Yeah, yeah. Parents, some of these programs, even BOCES programs, they cost about anywhere between $60,000 and $90,000 a year. So they're going to be paying that much anyway. And some of these public schools are a lot less expensive, while we may think it's a lot of money. But sending them to some of these private schools, like this McCartan school, it's a wonderful school, but it's a private school. And in order to do that, you would have to take the school district to court to get them to pay for that.
Thank you to Altis for providing us with this platform.
And we want to remind everybody that we are mothers. We're not professionals. We're sharing our experiences with you in the hopes that it can help you raise your autistic child.
See you next week. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Follow, like, and subscribe.
Here are some helpful special ed acronyms.